Folks, you all ready?
Thank you, it was.
Good evening. Welcome to the special school board meeting of December 6, 2023. It's close to 6 p.m. and we'll get started. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. The topic of this meeting will be location of the middle school. First off, Ms. Hastings, would you please take the roll of the board?
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Welsh.
Here.
Ms. Higgins.
Here.
Mr. Weinberg.
Here.
Mr. Cotton.
Here.
Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Ms. Meeker.
Here.
And Mr. Croto.
Here.
And I am here. We are all here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm looking out there. I don't think everybody out there has an agenda, but I will read it right now. Other than the call to order, we will review the middle school locations. We will open the floor up to public comment, and then we will have discussion and vote on middle school locations by the board, and then we will adjourn. I do ask during the public comment period that everybody adhere to the policies of the board. Normally we have them, but we do just basically keep it respectful and stay within your time. There are some people who commented that they would like to have like a 30-second warning, like a wave to say you're at 30 seconds, because in the interest of fairness, we do have to give everybody the same amount of time. So we will try to do that. If someone is keeping time at that point, we will do it. We will give you a high sign at 30 seconds, and that'll be your opportunity to wrap up. With that, Mr. Dunn, what do we have on our slides here? I got to turn around. First off is the timeline. This is just a review of all of the things that we've done since the visioning sessions of 2017. I'm not going to read all of these items, but to bring us to right now, we've had numerous visioning sessions, numerous meetings and discussions, many opportunities for public input, and a lot of questions, and we've progressed to the point now where we are, counting on some building aid and looking to keep this program moving by choosing a site. These are the two sites that are being considered. The first is on South Street, where the existing building is. If you look at this diagram, you will see that the existing building is outlined in red. The entranceway for cars and students would be the blue. The bus entranceway would be the yellow. You can also see that we have the Abbott Downing School, their play area. This has some fields that encroach into the Abbott Downing play area, but those things are not set in stone. The other diagram is the broken ground site. The broken ground site is also has the entranceway and the drop-off shown in blue and the bus route shown in yellow. This is one of several different options with regards to orientation of the fields and buildings. There's a little more space at the broken ground site, which gives a few more options with regards to how to lay it out. But this is, for the sake of tonight, this is an outline of that item. At this point, unless there is someone on the board that has something they'd like to bring up, I'd like to move into public comment. Everybody okay? All right. So we will have a period of public comment. Several people have signed in. We have numerous people signing in, so we will ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. I will ask that if you have spoken and addressed the board on the topic of the middle school that previously at one of our other meetings, that you allow those who haven't had a chance to speak first. So With that, do we want to go in order here? Mr. Robson, is this your first time speaking? Come on down. There's a microphone on each end. Please just be sure you're speaking close to it.
And then Mr. Russell will follow.
It says Robeson or Robinson?
It's R-O-B-S-O-N.
Is the microphone on? Yes,
Yes.
it is. My name is Tim Robson, and I'm a retired pensions actuary. I've lived in Concord for only 3 years, and I don't have anyone in my family in the Concord school system, but I think I can bring something to this discussion. I'm used to developing estimates of the values of retirement benefits. And the one thing I've learned over the years in my profession is that I'm never going to get my estimates right. I'll need to update the estimates as more information becomes available, and I'll never know the actual cost of providing those retirement benefits until everyone has died. I'm getting the same feeling about the cost estimates of building fresh at the broken ground site and the cost estimate of rebuilding at Rundlet. We seem to be at the beginning of the budgeting process, and the current estimates appear to be rough. We don't know the actual we won't know the actual costs until the project is finished. The board cannot decide as to which approach to take based on these rough cost estimates. The overall cost of each project is going to be somewhere in the range of $130 million. And a supposed $5 million difference that I saw from the last meeting is well within the potential errors in each estimate. So I'd recommend that the board view the two projects as being of roughly the same cost, and to make the decision as to where to build on other factors. The most important of these appears to be the opinions of the electorate as to the best location. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then I will ask people to just say what ward they're from. You can just say where you live, and that's
My
fine.
representative is up.
Thank you. You can just tell us where you live, but ward if you can. Thank you very much, Mr. Robson. Mr. Russell, and then Mr. Paul.
Charles Russell, Columbus Avenue, Ward 5, although it has been Ward 4 and 3 in the past. I don't envy your decision. It's a difficult decision, and I've followed it right along, but I hearken to maybe a couple of ideas on how to decide. I had some math and science background. Things at rest stay at rest. Things in motion stay in motion. So I guess the question is, why is there going to be motion? Is there a good and compelling reason? I think to the football replay rule, is there compelling reasons to overturn the decision or things as they are now? I looked up on school building aid, buried deep in the regulations that only an attorney could find. It says that school building aid cannot be used for off-site improvements, sidewalks, roads, traffic signals. So who's going to pay? Well, I heard from Jack when he spoke, 10% was budgeted into the school district and 90% to the people, but surprise, surprise, it all comes out of the same wallet. So, it makes a difference if we're going to have to go pay for a lot of improvements on infrastructure. I'm told it's a $170 million school. I'm told, well, we can do it for less. Well, Nashua is finishing up a middle school, and they're also renovated 2 other middle schools for $114 million. So that's 1 new school and probably 10 or 20 million on them. So why are we way up at 170? Nashua has 4 middle schools. They get about 10,000 students, probably 900 in each of the middle schools. Nashua has 3, Manchester has 4. So I wonder why the cost would be so much, and time to get out the sharpened pencil and also an eraser to realistically decide what it's going to be. the cost of the tear down if it was to move and Rundlet was be to torn down. We haven't torn schools down. We tore down Kimball School because we built McAuliffe School, but Walker School, Rumford School, Millville way back in the 80s, the school in East Concord, and the one up on the Heights that turned into community center haven't been torn down. Maybe we could do CRTC in there. I'm getting the signal to finish up, but the other thing is your demographic study is from 2017 with no buildings, with everything else. You need to do a new study with all the construction going on. Concord schools are going to grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Paul and then Ms. Ardinger.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Paul. I'm from Ward 10. I live on South Curtisville Road, just several hundred yards down the street from Broken Ground School. I am here to speak on behalf of rebuilding Rundlet, selfishly because I do not want the character of my neighborhood to change. I encourage all of the board members, if you haven't already, to spend some time in the neighborhood and see the green spaces, see how quiet it is. I've been in my house for 20 years and I have no plans to leave. I left Nashua because of the development in Nashua. Concord is a different animal, and I'm trying to hopefully keep it that way. A middle school brings exponentially more traffic and activity than Broken Ground and Millbrook School. And speaking on behalf of Mr. Robson, I too work in an industry that deals with estimates. Everything changes all the time. I don't think you can rely on just the cost. 4 or 5 years ago, the cost of wood was through the roof. So whatever you have for numbers now is not guaranteed to what you're going to have for numbers when and if you decide to rebuild. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. Ms. Ardinger, and then Ms. Hoadley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cass Ardinger. I live up the hill in Ward 5 on Westbourne Road. I'd like to weigh in on the board's decision of where to build the new middle school, not by reiterating all of the very good arguments that have been made by community members in favor of rebuilding at Rundlet, but by introducing the very crucial and fundamental concept of our unique form of school district governance and the implicit threat to it if the board goes against what, by all appearances, seems to be a huge community groundswell of consensus. Concord School District is benefited in many ways from our charter, which provides fiscal autonomy to the decisions by an elected board of 9 members. This autonomy allowed, in large part, the consolidation and building of the new elementary schools about a decade ago in an economical manner which did not appreciably increase the tax rate. For those who are new to Concord or who have short memories, the consolidation was a difficult, multi-year process of discerning how best to educationally serve our youngest students, and it engendered significant community discourse, none of which was easily translated into a clear consensus. Even so, the actions of the board at that time were perceived by some in our community to be in opposition to certain voices of objection. At that time, there arose an effort to restrain what was considered to be an irresponsible school board by interacting with the state legislature to eliminate the board's autonomy. As chair of the board then, I spent many hours and weeks and months fending off ill-conceived efforts to change the governance structure of Concord School District. A whole cascade of consequences occurred after this, including 2 separate commissions to revise the charter and concluding with a municipal vote on a new charter which stands today. It is only due to Herculean efforts by people in the community who believed in the effectiveness of an independent elected board dedicated to the expenditures of the school district that we maintain fiscal autonomy in this district. I submit to you that this form of governance is fragile and very much predicated on trust of our elected officials to engage with the community on issues of great importance, such as the building of new facilities. The Concord community has shown a high level of engagement on the issue of a new middle school and has come to the resounding conclusion that rebuilding at Runlet is the right answer. To decide otherwise without giving well-thought-out responses to voters' concerns would, I'm afraid, be tantamount to snubbing your noses at the community and would assuredly lead to long-term consequences, which would ultimately lead to a weakening of all that makes the governance of our school district healthy and the envy of so many other school districts around the state. Thank you for your commitment to Concord and its students.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Hoadley.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Oh, I'd have a vertigo attack up there and be on your feet. Thank you very much. I've not had the pleasure of speaking seated. This is wonderful. This is really wonderful. Thank you so much. There is one thing I want to remind you of. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about the evacuation of students if there was some kind of a terrible event near either site. And I just want to remind you that there would be about 1,500 students and staff, of course, at Broken Ground area to exit and evacuate over just one or two streets. On the contrary, at the South Street site, there would be 300 or more fewer students, and there would be lots of ways that they could get away. That wasn't what I wanted to talk about. I have good news for you. I've written this 3 times, and each time it's shorter. Aren't you happy? Okay. All right, tonight. I told you I was going to continue from Wednesday. Tonight I want to talk about something kind of ethical and mysterious and religious and ethical and all of those things. I want to talk about trust. When you were elected, people trusted you to come and represent them. They trusted you that you would do the right thing. They trusted you that you would listen to them. In the absence of trust, and there's plenty of it around in New Hampshire, in Washington, oh no, and even internationally, this is not an era of trust. I would like to think that Concord is different, that we can trust each other, and we believe in each other, and we're all trustworthy. The Concord Monitor today had a number of interesting things. I thought that the headline was probably fair. Their assessment is that and I had it here in my bag, but I'm not going to get it out. You read it. And it said that the public had really decided that the South Street side was better. The other thing, though, that I found more interesting was the revelation that there are other costs that would occur in the Broken Ground area. And I have been so sad that the sewer and water services thing had been put off and put off and put off. Everything that came out said, well, those aren't complete yet, those aren't complete yet. Well, now they're still not complete, but the idea that we have the possibility of powering up certain services over there, and we would have to pay a part of that. And it was also pointed out how infrequently you folks have met with Joint City School. I used to love that committee because I could give Duncan Ballantyne a real hard time, and he didn't like it. Anyway, you haven't met very often on that, and it's clear to me that there are additional costs that are yet to be determined that would have to be put on the Broken Ground site if you're going to talk about purely money. Now, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I take care of my money very carefully. I clip coupons and do all of that. Part of my decision would be on the financial comparisons.
Excuse me, Ms. Hoadley, you're over your 3 minutes. Could
Excuse
you wrap
me?
up?
Pardon?
You're over your 3 minutes. Could you please wrap up, finish your comment?
You want me to hurry up?
You really should be finished, to be quite honest, to be fair to everyone else.
Okay, I'm going to go with all the sad things. Okay, let me see. I wanted to bring all this up before, but I was so afraid you'd think of it as a threat. The problem is, folks, that if you are not trustworthy, or if you do things that people are unhappy about, they're going to defeat you. And that's happened. And I'm not worried about you being defeated. Some of you may say, I want to be. But the thing of it is, it taints the boards that come after you. So you have to understand that there's more here going on than just selecting a site. There's a whole history of, there's a whole history of, how is the school board going to be seen in the community? And if it's not seen well, then you're not going to attract new candidates. And this sets in action a whole lot of things that you wouldn't like.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hogan.
I won't get into autonomy, but I have to tell you that the autonomy, the privilege of autonomy in this district is at risk, and too many people have worked too long and too hard to keep it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
T. Nabstant, and then Maria Wimpy, please come. You can come down and speak, either microphone.
Good evening. I recognize some faces here from my time in Concord, in the education system here at Concord High and at the various and sundry elementary schools. I've spent a lot of time in the Concord School District. I live in Ward 5 on the Hopkinton Road. And I taught here in the Vocational Center under Steve Jones, and then under Charlie Foley, and then substitute taught at all of the schools in Concord except for one. Became a fencing coach, and then was fencing coach here at Concord High School again. And then came back for substitute teaching. So I've been in the Concord School District for a long time. Personally, I don't think we really need a new middle school, but that seems like a decision that's long gone by. I would rather see a school renovated. But if we're going to choose a site for a new middle school, I think we need to consider what the middle school would really cost at broken ground. People are saying, oh, it's going to be $175 million. It'll be $200 million before we get out the door, and don't you think it won't be? It's going to be very, very expensive. How are you going to mitigate all that? You're going to knock down all those trees, tear up all that ground, and then we've got to deal with the site on South Street. What are you going to do with that building? Going to turn it into homeless encampments, or what are you going to do with it? I think Concord needs to take a serious, hard look at where they're going in the future, and I think the future is South Street. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Wimpy, and I live in Ward 10 in like the Oak Hill area. I have lived in Concord my entire life. I went to school at Broken Ground, Runlet, Concord High. And at this point, I think that everyone has given ample information about why the middle school should remain at Runlet. So instead, I wish to speak for how I personally feel about it. Monday was the first school board meeting that I have ever attended, and everyone who spoke was pro rebuilding at the Runlet, where its original location is. And they had a lot of very valid points. I wanted to see how others viewed the two possible options. However, I was met with only those who agreed to do it at the Runlet site. And with that in mind, we can leave Runlet where it is and allow Broken Grounds, forested lands to prosper. And we can also make an eco-friendly school anywhere. So I feel that as though it is counterproductive to cut down acres of trees to do this when there's already a piece of land where it should be. For a community who prides themselves in wanting to better our eco-footprint with making eco-friendly schools, we are trying to hide the true carbon footprints it will add by hiding them with shiny new things. We should have a safe, walkable Runlet. We should have an eco-friendly Runlet. We should have a Runlet that is in Concord, centralized, and not laying on the outskirts of Concord. We need to minimize buses, thus minimizing our carbon footprint. And my last comment would be, we were given 2 possible options for a location for Runlet, and there has been an outpour of support to keep it where it is. And so all I wish is for our voices to be heard and not to be echoing through the auditorium. I wish for our legacy to be one that students will see in a positive light. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Pacelli, and then Brent Longgood.
Hi, my name is Maria Pacelli. I live on Dominique Drive in Ward 10. I don't think that there are any arguments that I can make that the overwhelming majority of others and I haven't already made over the past several months as to why building the new middle school on the grounds of the current school with its existing infrastructure and established relationships with the high school and others makes the most financial and ecological sense, rather than to destroy the beautiful and irreplaceable forest land at the broken ground site with more to fall in the future for predicted expansions. These woods and trails could be used to develop educational learning experiences around nature and interdependent ecosystems, which would bring in school children from both sides of the river. I encourage you to make the decision to do what is right for our children, our community, and our earth. At an earlier meeting this year, a board member mentioned that this project will be this board's legacy. To make the decision to responsibly use existing resources rather than to destroy what little is left of Concord's priceless woodlands, you would indeed leave a legacy that we can all be proud of.
Hello, my name is Brett Longgood, and I'm a Ward 10 resident. Having grown up in New Jersey as a baby boomer, I know something about development and the implications of massive and rapid development. And this is one of those situations that I'm pleased to see that the interests of fiscal conservatives, advocates for ecology and the environment, and proponents of social justice all have their interest aligned in that we can rebuild or we can create a new building over on South Street, and it will have much less negative impact on the community and on the taxpayers than undertaking a project of this magnitude in East Concord. There are so many unknowns and variables and hidden costs to develop in East Concord that we really have no idea what those will cost, because they're going to be related to infrastructure being inadequate and needing to address utilities, water, sewer, traffic, highways, sidewalks. We don't even have enough resource in Concord now to take care of all of the potholes and repaving that needs to be done. And now we're going to be jamming a lot more people into a very small area and exacerbating all of the existing problems with traffic caused by the school. I have heard nothing but an overwhelming opposition to building in East Concord since I began attending various public forums on this subject. And in the absence of having a vote, I think the voters have spoken through their participation in these public meetings. And I just want to add my voice to, in a formal way, to the opposition for building in East Concord. We don't need to tear down trees in order to teach children about the environment. We don't need to rip up our streets for years and put all kinds of new pipes under them and new wires in order to set this up. It reminds me of moving into Arizona and trying to bring in water and electric and set up something that's an artificial and not meant to be there. We already have a community that's adapted to having a facility for education in the South Street area, and there's all kinds of opportunities for Concord to have social justice and more inclusivity and to bring people together from all parts of the city. Putting a building in a new location does not address all of those fundamental underlying issues that we find so challenging. That's all I have to say, and thank you for giving the opportunity to talk tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Longgood.
Judith Kirst and Ellen Kenny.
Good evening. My name is Judith Kurtz. I'm a resident of Ward 5. I am a lifelong educator, though not in the Concord schools, and I'm a parent, but my children will not be attending Runlet. So my skin in this game from the beginning of my involvement 2 years ago has been in trying to elicit from the community what best serves them. And I have done that in a few different ways. This summer, I co-facilitated a listening session at the Citywide Community Center, an attempt to draw folks out who may not regularly attend events like this one. And I'll admit that I went into that session with an idea about where I thought other people would want the school to be, and I was surprised. So something that I personally stand for is allowing myself to learn and change based on what I learn. And the resounding voices at that event, including the voices that I thought would advocate for building on the east side because I thought it would better serve that portion of the community, all spoke strongly in favor of rebuilding at Runlet on South Street. Then this fall, I had an opportunity to knock on a lot of doors, and while I did not intend to talk about the middle school location, many, many people wanted to talk to me about it, and again, the resounding consensus of those voices was for folks who wanted to build on South Street. So I'm here with a lot of respect for each of you, a lot of gratitude for your volunteer service to our community, and just to ask you to please take very seriously what the community has said. You are our representatives. We don't have a town meeting. This isn't a bond item that we get to tick a box about. All we can do is be here and be at events like this one and hope that you represent our voices. And the voices that I have heard, and I'm going to speak on their behalf tonight, is that people really want you to rebuild at Runlet. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Ms. Kenny? Okay, that's fine.
Jillian Andrews Dubois.
Following Ms. Dubois will be Bert Cooper.
Hi there. Jillian Andrews Dubois or Dubois, either way is wonderful. And first, I just want to thank you all so much for your service on the school board and your thoughtful consideration of this and many other decisions. I know it's not easy, and we appreciate it. I am the parent of a 6-year-old and 4-year-old. My daughter's at Abbott Downing this year. And I'm also a former 7th grade teacher, so I am very invested in what happens with the middle school. I also, I'm glad I went after Judith because I feel like I agree with a lot of what she said. I went into this really open-minded and wasn't sure where I would stand on things, but it really just seems like so many folks are in support of rebuilding at Runlet. I think for me, the biggest thing was when the maps went up with the bus radius showing, what those areas both look like, and the fact that there will be 2 more buses estimated to be required in the broken ground site, especially given that there have been cities in or okay, maybe not cities plural, but definitely Manchester this year had problems with hiring enough bus drivers. And I think that, it's probably a type of job that with younger workers hoping for more flexible hours and working from home, that will probably continue to be a tough position to fill over the years. So I think that trying to minimize the number of buses is really important. And I just kind of wanted to respond to, there was a letters to editor in the Monitor today talking about how the broken ground site would be better because there is more opportunity to expand. And honestly, I think that we should probably never be expanding this new middle school because it already is going to be larger than what is best for kids based on the most recent research. So I don't think that it would be appropriate to have a school even bigger. Frankly, we should really have more than one middle school, but I understand that that would be really expensive. So I think that if we are going to move forward with just one, that we should do it at the current site, and that planning in the future to have an even more inappropriately sized school is not great. And I live in Ward 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Mr. Cooper. Thank you so much. Aaron Frucht Monroe and Joel Eaton.
Hello, Aaron Frucht-Monroe. I live in Ward 5, and I think just people have really reiterated some of my talking points, echoing the concerns of the second speaker up here above, really pushing off the large infrastructure costs for sewer and water and whatnot, sidewalks, back onto the city. It is all one tax base. There was an article earlier in the Monitor yesterday, 2 days ago, about people that are really feeling the tax strain already in the city. So looking to, again, see what we can do to decrease that. I also attended some of the community listening sessions earlier up on the Heights, and wanting really to learn from the people who would possibly have this new school in their backyard. And like I think Judith said, I went into those with some preconceived notions of what I thought those people would possibly want, and came out with learning that they would prefer keeping the school over at the current location. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you for your consideration, and I'm in support of keeping the school at the current location as well.
Thank you very much. Joel Eaton.
Hello, I'm Joel Eaton, and I live in Ward 4. And I just wanted to take a deep breath because there's a lot right now in this room. And there's a lot of people here expectant, bringing a lot of passion. There's a lot of hope and a lot of concern for the future. I've heard a lot about legacy of the board, and I've heard a lot about concern for green space, for the woods over in Broken Ground, concern for smart building in town. I've heard a lot of concerns that I didn't have, and now I share them too. Ideas and thoughts. And I even had a new idea as I was sitting where I was sitting, which was how the South Street School is built in a place that was built for pedestrian and bike traffic, and it makes total sense because it's an old enough part of town. Whereas where the proposed site for broken ground is an area of Concord that was developed. Again, most of that was woods up until about 50 years ago. An area that was developed with the prominence of the car. And so it makes total sense that if you build a school over there, you are locking yourself into an infrastructure that is dependent upon the automobile and busing and whatnot. If you leave it where it is, the site, you are continuing a vibrant part of Concord's walkability, bikeability. I'm a parent of a second grader at Christa McAuliffe School. I'm anticipating that my son will be going to this school. Again, I know things always take longer than we expect, but I would love for him to go to a school that's built at the Runlet site for all the reasons that we've heard here. But my biggest concern really is not about those locations, but about what's been said earlier in this meeting, which is really around the relationships and the community relationships that we have here. And what has been said about trust, I echo wholeheartedly. I think that we really need to demonstrate that we are a community that can listen, receive feedback, and even change our minds when new information comes to light that changes our existing perspectives. Just like Judith, that happened for me over the summer. I work in the east side of town, and I was thinking this would be great to have the school over at Broken Ground. And when I started to hear all of the arguments why that didn't make really the sense that I thought it would, I changed my mind. And I hope that you can too. So that's from me. Please rebuild at Runlet.
Thank you, Mr. Eden. Scott DeRoche, and then Ellen Kenny.
Hello. I'll keep things brief. First of all, thank you. It's been a year-long effort. I'm sure you're all exhausted. I know it's a thankless job, or it can be, being in public service. So thank you for listening to all of us. You know, this is a really important project. I think we all recognize that. And when you talk about changing something that is status quo or going against community opinion, you need a compelling reason to do that. And I'm struggling to figure out what that reason is. Right? I've heard several over the years. The ones that I'm hearing now are cost, and I still don't understand that piece. You know, yes, the estimate seems to be preliminary. It's about $5 million difference. Doesn't seem to be apples and oranges. You know, there's some pretty big things in there, like the fact that we as taxpayers would still pay the 90% that is expected the city to pay. So it's still a cost for us, right? The abatement, the demolition costs, those are expenses that could be incurred either way, right? I don't see how cost is that major compelling factor. It's $5 million of a $176 million project. To me, I think that tax bills are pretty high. The whole project is expensive. And I know there's a whole nother phase of this project to look at what's really needed in this school, and potentially there's some savings that could be met on that front. The other piece that has been discussed is room to expand. You know, the sites are both accommodating the same school, the same footprint, the same room. So that doesn't seem to be the argument for today. The argument is maybe in 50 years' time. 50 years' time, we may need something totally different as a community. We may need a second middle school. We may need to expand in different ways. I don't really understand that argument still today. So I understand that you're taking in all these different factors, and I commend you at looking at this from all different angles. I just wish there was something compelling that was pointing to saying, well, this site makes sense, right? And sometimes you may have to go against people who are speaking in community opinion. I understand that that's your prerogative and really your charge as elected officials. But I hope that it's based on solid reasoning and solid rationale, and I'm having a hard time understanding that. So I'm hoping that you will consider this and rebuild at Runlet. Thank you very much for your consideration. I'm from Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I'm sorry. I thought it was Mr. Cooper, and then
Ms. Kenny's there.
Ms. Kenny.
Ms. Kenny. Okay, Ms. Kenny and Mr. Cooper, and then Ms. Brown.
Oops. My name is Ellen Kenny. I'm a resident of Ward 4 and a teacher in Concord. The other day, someone shared with me a quote that helped me frame what I wanted to say tonight because, you know, you've all heard from me before. This quote was about hope and that it is our gratitude that allows hope and optimism to be sustained. So relevant to this discussion, here's what I'm grateful for. That I live in a city bisected by a beautiful river with downtown civic and cultural opportunities on one side, woodlands, wildlife corridors, a new rec center, and a large, well-used park on the other. I'm grateful to live in a town with a good quality of life, where former school boards have made a point to have walkable schools. A town with a middle school in close proximity to our high school, allowing us to collaborate, cooperate, and share resources. Values that we teach throughout all of our grade levels here in Concord that are essential for a sustainable future. This gratitude I have for my community is sustaining the following hope. I'm hopeful that by making the right decision here tonight, we can create a future for our town and our children that is equally livable, healthy, and sustainable. Therein lies true equity. As you know, while we debate this local issue, an environmental summit is taking place in Dubai. Delegates from 190 countries have come together because climate change is at a tipping point, and there is much debate about how soon and how fast we'll have to change our ways. As citizens of Concord, perhaps we have no power over the decisions being made by the world leaders in Dubai. But because we're privileged to live in a democracy, we can influence what happens locally here in our community. From all different wards, the citizens have asked the board repeatedly at these forums to choose not to make the decision to build a school that almost nobody will be able to get to without a bus or a car. If this seems, as it does to many of us, like a surprising decision to make now, I'm afraid it will seem absolutely shocking 10 years from now when people, including our future middle school students, will be asking this question: what were they thinking? I'm almost done. I will wrap up quickly. A line from a well-known folk song from the 60s says, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." On the contrary, I say, what those of us who live here in Concord are telling you is that we know exactly what we have and exactly what we will be losing if you make the decision to build in the broken ground woods. Those that won't know what we've got now in this very livable city will be the future generations.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny.
They can't know what they have never had the opportunity to have experienced. Those of us asking that Runlet be rebuilt on the current site are hoping that you will listen with your hearts tonight and not allow this to happen.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny.
I have a program I watch for 2 minutes, so I'll try. My name is Bert Cooper, Ward 7. If there truly was a strong case for broken ground site, we would not be having this meeting. The board would have already convinced the public of the merits of broken ground. Instead, we get financial presentations purporting to show a cost advantage for broken ground, conveniently omitting a couple $1 million for bus services here, a couple $1 million to we taxpayers for water services there, and hypotheticals that $4.5 million for demolition and abatement costs should only be considered if we rebuild at Runlet and not if otherwise. I would note that the extra transportation and infrastructure costs associated with broken ground appear nowhere on the district's website, nor the fact that those expenses would not be covered by state building aid. Same for the demolition. There is also no note that student populations at Millbrook and Broken Ground have dropped appreciably more than those at Christa, McAuliffe, and Abbott Downing compared to the board's projections from 2017 and 2019. We don't intend to massively increase the student capacity of the school either, because the board has been told much of the new construction on the east side will be for dinks, dual income, no kids. What does the project website tell us? All the benefits of Broken Ground with scant mention of the benefits of Rundlet. It minimizes the issues at Broken Grounds, issues sufficient to warrant the rejection of Broken Ground compared to Rundlet when the board was hoping to buy the Centerpoint property at Clinton Street. The deficits of Broken Ground are still there. It's isolation, expensive infrastructure updates that will have to be arranged with the city before Broken Ground goes forward, which means it's a contingency. Those contingencies affect money. Why isn't there any mention of the benefit of 850 Rundlet students being able to walk to Memorial Field for practices, to White Farm, to the Science Center, to Concord High School, or even to the State House? Instead, we'll have to have more buses or more car trips. Let's leave aside any of the educational or health values of those 850 students not walking, but instead being bused or sent by car. So I do hope you'll consider Rundlet as the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Ms. Brown?
Hello again. I just would like to say that regardless of what your decision is, I am committed to working with you because it is for our future. And I'm here because a lot of people are from Ward 5, and this is what my residents, taxpayers care about. It's also in our master plan under land use goals. Prioritize and maximize the reuse and redevelopment of land and buildings, particularly in the downtowns and the Opportunity Corridor, in preference to new development and greenfield development. So I am obviously in favor of rebuilding at Rundlet, and I had spoken about the future developments, the 3016. I've mapped them out on this map for you with the residential units, and I've also included in pink where we are doing streets. We have about $3 million for the fiscal year 25, where we're going to be doing redoing our roads, because when we redo our roads, we're also redoing the sidewalks. And none of those areas are near the Broken Ground site. So I will leave that with you, but I also have some exciting news because I am committed to working for this, that I found you fields. I don't know who told you that the fields are unavailable if the school is rebuilt at Rundlet. I spoke with the facilities director of Parks and Rec, and he said that they don't start scheduling those fields until February for spring sports and in May for fall sports. So we can absolutely use those fields, and I talked to them about other fields that might be available that aren't typically reserved. And there's Fletcher Murphy, which is a half acre, William Thompson Playground, which is 0.69 acres. West Street Playlot is also available for kids, which is 0.6 acres. And Russell Martin Park is available. We can just reserve it. But I have also talked to private owners. I have found 6 acres on Clinton Street. I spoke with them today, and they have been looking to shop that out to schools to use. It's 1.2 miles from Rundlet, so that is something that we can explore as being available. And also on 58 Warren Street, there's 0.7 acres. It was going to be a site for elderly housing, but you've seen it. It's just grass now, and I spoke with Harold Ekstrom, and he is open for kids to use that green space. So we have green space availability if you choose to rebuild at Rundlet. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Fisto asked to speak. Is Fisto? Oh. See if Fisto.
Hello, my name is Fiston Dashimir. I live in Ward 1. I'm a lead organizer for Change for Concord, and last word I always say is I love this city. So I am in favor of rebuilding Runlet, the current location, mainly because of most of young people or students from the east side relies on public transportation. And I think this is more like a safety for those students because most of the parents are away working maybe 2 to 3 jobs every day, doesn't have private transportation for their kids to get to school. So if we would rebuild runway on east side, then those kids have no option rather than just walking to school every day. I think that's risky for their parents to just let their kids walk every day to school. I think it's very important to make sure that we understand that we still have other families that really relies on this public transportation. And although I think that we still need to do a better job on public transportation, and that's a different topic that we might need to speak on, but I really support the idea of rebuilding runway, and I think it needs to be big because we are starting to see the changes happening. And just an example, Concord High School, we have these CRTC programs. It's starting to become big, and we need more space. And making our schools more bigger, it's not a conversation, it's not an option, it's something we need for the future. And maybe in the future we're gonna need more bigger middle schools. So how about if we start with this one, make it more big at the current location, and make sure we have better public transportation for the kids who relies on public transportation. That's all I can say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christa. Meredith Cooley and then Dave Parker.
Hello, my name is Meredith Cooley, and I'm co-director of Concord Green Space. I also have 2 kids one in Christa and McAuliffe, who will be attending Runlet in a few years. I'd first like to thank you for your service to our community. It fills my heart to see each of you there doing your best to push our district forward, to meet the needs and best interests of our children. Isn't it great that we're gathered here today not to discuss whether or not to build a middle school, but rather where to build a middle school? We show up tonight as a community that values education and embraces creating opportunities for children to succeed. I also want to thank volunteers for Concord Green Space who have been working so hard for 2 years on the middle school project and making sure that the community is heard on the issues. Tonight is the culmination of 2 years of advocacy for Concord Green Space and for community members, and tonight I just want to speak a little bit about what we've done since we started on this project. We've shown up to meetings, we've facilitated listening sessions, multiple listening sessions, we've planted signs in yards, we've kept thousands of community members updated and informed, we've pivoted, we've listened, and most recently, we've knocked on doors up on the Heights where we have met with families, sat in their living rooms, spoken across language barriers to really click down on what families who will be most impacted by this decision, to see what their thoughts, hopes, and dreams are. And also importantly, we've held an open container for community members, students, families, community leaders, and teachers to make themselves heard. And all of this we've shared with you. So I didn't realize we had 3 minutes. I thought we had 5 minutes, so I'm getting the sign, but...
You have 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. I just share that we've shared this all with you, including our canvassing up on the Heights. And I just want to look at each of you and ask, what is in the long-term interests of Concord? What is in our long-term interests of our children and our families? I ask you that I personally believe that that's investing in our community, and our community's taken an incredible amount of time to come out and tell you what their hopes and dreams and thoughts around this middle school is. So let's invest in them. That's what leadership looks like, is investing back in what you're hearing from your community. So it can't be easy up there, and I really appreciate what you do, but I urge you to invest in us, your community, and rebuild at Runlet. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
Good evening. Are we all having fun? I'd like to take a different approach to this and talk about culture and talk about community and villages. You know, growing up around here, this city was villages. It was East Concord, it was West Concord, it's downtown, and other villages, the Heights, Pennacook. And at one point, a lot of the land around Conant, before it was the school it is now, were fields. We played in those fields. And then housing came in and took up a lot of that space. We have also focused our efforts on the west part of Concord, which is the central part of Concord, this West End. In the West End, we get an Homestead Park, White Park, and we rebuild Main Street at a significant amount of money. And so when I think about the Heights, I think about, this doesn't surprise me, this community response. We've been neglecting them for eons and eons and eons, back when it was the Dark Plains. To me, a middle school would help to revitalize or re-energize that community. Where's the applause? When Concord was getting a new Main Street, the founding fathers thought it was important to put fast food restaurants up there. Those were pine barrens. Those are beautiful forests up there. But let's put all our fast food restaurants up there. And we weren't satisfied with that, so we put all our automobile factories and sales on what's the name of the street?
Manchester Street. Manchester Street.
Yeah, Manchester Street. So it doesn't surprise me that that we're neglecting them again. Because I think a middle school there would be a nice statement to the people that we value them and we value putting a school closer to them. And let's face it, it's not about busing, it's who has to go bus and get bused. They've been getting bused for 50 years. And it's not about walkability. No one walks to school. It's a joke. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that our buses aren't filled with students because people drive them there. We are the product of our own selfishness in terms of that. I mean, our kids don't ride these buses. I mean, and so I'm not surprised, and I support what everyone says here. I mean, I understand that you would want to keep it at Runlet, and there's certainly a lot of advantages to all of us here in the West End to do that. But someone needs to speak for the Heights, and I've been trying to do that for years. And so, I
Thank
think
you.
it should be rebuilt, not in Runlet, but it should be built on broken ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. So- Okay. Alex Streeter and Julie Yerkes.
Good evening. My name is Alex Streeter. I live in Ward 7. I'm here to speak in favor of rebuilding at Rundlet. I'm not going to rehash the arguments in favor of that location or against broken ground. You've heard it all before. I've been to a number of these meetings already myself, and I'm not going to go through those arguments once again. One thing I will mention that has been said against building at Rundlet, and that is the possibility of disruption to the students that are using the existing building during that 2 to 3 year construction phase. I don't want to dismiss it, but I also think it's overblown. I have a 3rd grader. She will probably be in that very situation in a couple of years. And I actually look at it as a bit of an opportunity to allow the students to see what is taking place, to see what it means to build something. They will see the giant machinery, they will see the metalwork going up, they will see plumbers, they will see electricians, they will see tradespeople. They will have the opportunity to sign their name on the topmost beam during the topping out ceremony. And I think that that exposure has value. And I don't think that's the experience that they would get building at broken ground. I experienced that personally about 20 years ago when I was doing grad school at Dartmouth College. The engineering school was building a 75,000 square foot addition to the engineering school. My classrooms and my offices looked directly into the first the pit and then gradually the building that they were erecting out there. It wasn't a separate building. It was more of an expansion with an enormous atrium connecting them. And it was really neat to see the whole process playing out. People are always lamenting that children don't want to go into the trades. This is an opportunity to show them what that actually looks like. I also, like many others, I don't want to dwell too much on cost, but I'm looking forward to the pencil sharpening phase of the project. I haven't seen particularly clear numbers about the expected size of the new building, but at the moment, the estimates are looking at something between $800 and $1,000 per square foot, which is, roughly speaking, 2 to 3 times the cost of residential new construction. It's about 50% higher than the cost of a new 5-star hotel. It's approaching the cost of specialized manufacturing like a biomedical laboratory. So I think at the moment the estimates are outrageous, and I look forward to seeing them coming down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Yerkes, and I am a resident of Ward 5, and I did not plan this with Alex, but I was very happy for the segue because I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I lived on North Spring Street when Christa McAuliffe School was demolitioned and rebuilt, and I had also heard that disruption was a concern, so I just wanted to share my perspective of living just across the street from Christa McAuliffe School when Kimball was demolitioned and Christa McAuliffe was built. It was not disruptive. Matt Cashman was absolutely incredible at taking care of that city block of all the neighbors. We had community meetings ahead of time. I had 2 young children at the time, and I had a home office running 2 businesses before people worked from home. I was pretty unique in that position, and I experienced absolutely no disruption at all. Much more disruption when, unrelated to the building, the city's water main just, erupted, and that was much worse than the whole demolition of the school and the rebuilding. So I had heard that that was a concern I wanted to share as one of the neighbors of that process, and I also would echo the opportunity. Granted, my kids were very young at the time, but I would open the windows, and they would get to see it all in real life, and they're today very appreciative of the whole process and what it takes to do that kind of work and be part of a community where things happen. So thank you all for being here. I hope someone more eloquent can come after me. But thank you.
I believe that's all that we've had listed. So at this point, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess because people need a break. So let's break for 5 minutes, and is that sufficient for the board? 5 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take a recess for 5 minutes. Thank you very much. bring us back to order. Thank you, all of you, for your comments this evening. Thank you to the people who made comments before. Thank you to all the people who have talked to us, who have called us, who have emailed us. And at this point, it'll be, before we can get into a board discussion, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board vote to build the new middle school at the Broken Ground site.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Ms. Robinson to, let me be very clear, to build at the Broken Ground site.
Yes.
Okay, motion made for building at the Broken Ground site. The motion was seconded by Mr. Weinberg for Ms. Hastings, if you're taking notes. And now I'll open it up for discussion. So
I'm happy to explain why I made the motion.
certainly as the person who made the motion, you may start the discussion.
Sure. Hi. I know that's not what a lot of you wanted to hear from me. I'm a community organizer as part of my work. And so I go into communities across the state to help people protect and nurture their public education spaces. So I know a little bit about education policy, pedagogy, good curriculum, and what it takes to teach a kiddo and help them to be successful. I notice that there is a large contingency of our community that is not present, and that participation in events such as this require a significant amount of access in order to participate. I've done my due diligence as an elected official. I've spoken to folks in the wards that I represent, and I've heard from lots of people that wish to have a school at the Broken Ground site. I've heard from many of you directly, and I've heard from lots of others who would like it at the Runlet site. But mostly I've heard from folks that are concerned about losing their homes because of increased taxation and a litany of infrastructure repairs that need to be done across our city. So when I think about what it takes to make sure that we have a community that has a broad spectrum of lived experience, which includes across financial experiences, my due diligence is to make sure that we have the smallest tax burden possible on our community, which means $5.5 million of a differentiation between both sites matters. And I'm seeing that a lot of you are not appreciating that, and I can appreciate that you're disappointed. I've heard from lots of you, and the argument for Runlet is substantial. But I also plan that when we're going to be talking about what it actually is going to cost to build this school, I'll work to continue to bring that $176 million number down further, because we can't continue to ask families to shoulder the burden of property taxes that in a way that is just untenable for so many of us. And I thought it would be my due diligence to acknowledge that there are several wards that are still not represented here tonight. So there's an outsized voice from certain sections of our city making the same case over and over again. So I am voting for the Broken Ground site for monetary reasons and equity reasons, and I'm sure that they are reasons that many of you don't appreciate. And I can appreciate the reasons why you would want it elsewhere, but I thought that you deserve an explanation as to where my thought process is coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Further, just go ahead, Mr. Weinberg.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson, and thank you for everyone for coming and maintaining engagement in this whole process. I know also it's a disappointing for individuals to see me who represent Zone B, wards 5, 6, and 7, where Runlet currently resides. I've heard a lot of individuals also mention tonight about not understanding a compelling reason for supporting Broken Ground, so I want to say why I will be supporting it personally. We've seen a lot of what disruption to student learning can do in the past few years. We've also heard tonight how some individuals have said it's being overblown, or other parents in previous meetings also note that they are comfortable with their students experiencing that disruption, that they are comfortable. Financially advantaged households experiencing disruption from education is different than individuals from financially disadvantaged backgrounds. Students from financially advantaged backgrounds can have tutors, they can have extra study support in order to mitigate those disruption challenges. Whereas students from financially disadvantaged backgrounds do not have those same means to help support and provide extra avenues to support their education ventures. I am not comfortable with sacrificing a few years of learning for students in order to pursue this path at Rundlet. I want to make sure that students, when they are in the school, are able to maintain focus, are able to be there, be present, and able to help support their academic journeys. I've also heard a lot about how this can be a learning opportunity for students to learn about engineering, how they can see projects in action. This can also happen at the Broken Ground site with Millbrook and Broken Ground students. They can see what is going on. They can learn about engineering from an early age. And for these reasons, and also I would like to note the busing comments about individuals being able to have access to buses. The board has discussed in the past that the radius for busing will increase, so students will not be forced to walk unsafe routes to school. I don't believe that's in anyone's best interest, especially the students. And for those reasons, I'll be voting for Broken Ground School.
Thank you, Mr. Weinberg. Go ahead, Mr. Croto, and then Ms. Meeker.
I've been around this town a long time, and I felt that I would write down my notes so that you folks would be able to hear why I'm voting the way I'm voting. Right or wrong, these are my thoughts. I'll be voting for the Broken Ground site based on the potential for expansion. We know that just playing fields alone, we know how important sports are to our kids, particularly to our middle school kids. We don't have enough field space at Rundlet Middle School right now, and we would not have any greater if we build there. There's potential for expansion at Broken Ground. We have preschools that are being run in our buildings right now, but we are somewhat handicapped in our space. Our Christa McAuliffe School and our Abbott Downing School are cramped for space right now. And we also we have a potential for really growing big our CRTC program. And we don't have enough space. We also are entertaining, well, actually we are indulging in a new program at the middle school for some of our kids who need a little extra. And they need extra space to do that. We need to be able to provide that in a space that's closer to their home building. And I would hope that that future building would do that. As far as walking and biking, I've heard that over and over and over. And first of all, I'm not entirely convinced as a single board member, not as a group, that we have a lot of kids walking and biking to school right now. And that's not just my guess, that's based on discussions that I've had with folks. However, if there's walking and biking to be had, why not have the Heights kids and the East Concord kids have that same luxury? Traffic. Everybody talks about traffic. Everybody talks about traffic. There's traffic at Beaver Meadow School right outside my street twice a day, every day. It's a part of life. It's what we do. In the winter, the bankings get bigger, the parking gets closer to the middle of the road, and we just adjust. On back-to-school nights, we adjust. It's part of the deal. Fortunately, the design of the Broken Ground Middle School is that we get the traffic off the road and into the driveway. It's not going to cure it all, but it will certainly help. Infrastructure, I hear that over and over and over. We have infrastructure issues at the current site. And I'm no building inspector or technician, but I know that 3 weeks ago we had a major water break down there that closed both our schools. That infrastructure in some cases is probably 40 or 50 years old. And it's not going to reach up to the new school site if indeed we stay there. It's going to need to be redone. And infrastructure is also defined, and I'm going to try to keep my 3 minutes, I promise. I'm going over. Betty's telling me I'm going over. So I'll wrap it up. There's no way on earth that this board or any future board, any boards that I've served on in the past 10 years, would ever allow for unsafe school routes for kids. It would not. It will be taken care of. Cost, that's the next step in this. I want to stay in the city as a taxpayer. I don't want a $170 million building cost. That's up for these folks for the future to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to build something that taxpayers can handle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Croto. Ms. Meeker?
Thank you. Should have written more things down. My comments are to my fellow board members. I heard a couple of you say so far that you feel bad that you are disappointing the people in this room and the people listening. And I say, let's not disappoint them. Let's take what they are saying and be inspired that they are inspired, be excited that they are excited, be positive that they are positive, that they want the school at the existing site. We can do hard things, we can overcome challenges, we can bring down costs. Our architects are incredible, our administrators are incredible. They will deal with the challenges that arise every day, seen and unforeseen. So when you have so much community buy-in, why not tap into it? Why not just say, yeah, okay, like this is our community, this is community building, this is placemaking. We have people that are telling us what they want. And for us to not even start the conversation that way is disappointing to me. I think we should listen to the public. I think we should respect what our constituents are asking of us, and I think we should table this motion and visit a different motion for the Runlet site.
Please go ahead. Ms. Higgins?
How many of you have ever heard of something called the double bind? Anyone know what I'm talking about? So a double bind is a psychological term, and it's most easily explained in this example. You have a child sitting at the dinner table. One parent wants it quiet, no talking. The other parent is so curious about your day and is asking you a million questions. If you answer that parent, you make them happy, and you get in trouble with the other one. If you stay silent, you make that parent happy, and you upset this one. And so a child in that situation suddenly feels hopeless. No matter what I do, somebody's mad at me. When I was first elected to this board, Mrs. Hoadley right there, took me for breakfast and gave me a lot of advice on what to expect as a board member. And the first thing she said is, get ready for half the people to hate you. That's when you stand up for what you think, or when you listen to constituents that you represent, but maybe don't agree with others. The double bind is also an insidious way for politicians and people of power to manipulate a group of people to think a certain way or to feel hopeless. What I see in our school board, and Cass, you sort of touched upon this, is a lot of our board meetings are empty, nobody comes. And when I ask around, why don't you come? Well, it doesn't matter, you've all made up your minds anyway. My being there won't make a difference. So we've created a group of people that just sort of do what we say. They complain about us, sure, and there's articles in the paper about how we like to spend money. And we can easily say, well, no one comes, so, what does it matter, right? So we're creating a double bind. So then we have a situation, a new middle school, a ridiculous price tag, cutting up trees or tearing down a building that is far too young in age to be torn down, is a win-less situation. So on my level as a board member, my double bind is I want to leave the trees alone and I don't want to tear down a building. So there's no choice for me that really sits right in my stomach. The money is the same. The busing issue, Mr. Parker put it well, it's who's being bused, right? It's not that we're busing, it's who's on those buses. All of the details of each site cancel out or balance one another. There is no huge reason to choose one over the other. There just isn't. There's logical and positive arguments for both sites. There are parts of my brain that can see both sites as positive choices. The one overriding factor, and my friend over here seems to feel that 70% of our community supports broken ground. I have no belief that 70% of our community supports that. What I see is a room full of people on a Wednesday night that came here to express their views, and one person who lives in walking distance chose to share his view on broken ground, which I appreciate. He had made a lot of good points. We are creating a double bind in the constituents, Mr. Jonathan, that we claim to represent, District B, by listening to an hour and a half of testimony and then saying, well, I already wrote my notes, I've already made my decision, so thanks for coming to talk, but here's how I'm voting. And that must feel pretty crappy from those seats. It doesn't feel any better right here. What I would like to do is nothing. I would like to table this whole decision. I would like to leave it alone. It's too expensive. It's going to decimate the citizens' middle to lower middle class. There isn't enough agreement and support one way or another to say, yes, this is the way to go. I'd also like to point out that we already have 2 high schools and 2 middle schools in the city of Concord. One elementary school in the 03301 area code, zip code rather, is closer to Merrimack Valley Middle School than it is to Runlet. We have 2 tracks. The track at Merrimack Valley is far superior to the one here at Memorial Field. It's beautiful. Athletic fields, plenty. We don't need to build a new middle school. We could actually sit back and put this project to the side and rethink how we educate our kids and how we spend our money. Do I really think we need to combine with Merrimack Valley and change the way we've educated our kids in Concord for a long time? I don't know. It used to be Pennacook High School. Loudon kids used to come here. Bow used to come here. We make these changes all the time. Do we need to build a $250 million middle school? We do not. And there isn't enough support one way or another for me to feel good as a representative of all the districts, I'm a citywide rep, to say, yeah, I picked this one, or yeah, I picked that one. I do have to say, if I were to have to choose one, I would choose rebuilding at Runlet. And that's just my personal opinion. But as a board member, the one thing that makes me feel best about that opinion is it's the most widely shared opinion I've heard anywhere, in the paper, in the email, at meetings, on the phone. This is what I've heard. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Any other discussion? You, go right ahead.
Somebody else. I think whichever way we end up going, we have challenges that we've heard at both sites from the community that we need to address. There are, including traffic, water and sewer, busing. I was surprised at the number of kids who actually walk or ride their bikes to Runlet. It's pretty small, and I think we probably, if we want to reduce the car traffic there, if we stay at that site, we probably need to look at shortening that radius for that site as well, because a lot of kids who live in that mile to a mile and a half are either getting waivers or being driven. But that's, and I think I'm committed, and I think most of the board is committed to wherever we go to take the feedback we've heard about both sites and incorporate it. For me, I think there are compelling reasons to move to the broken ground site. Tradition is important, and if I thought we could make it work at Runlet without disruptions to students, without additional costs, without an extra year and a half to complete the facility, then I would be fine staying there. But I don't think we can do that. If we build at Runlet, today's 6th graders will be starting college before the new campus would be ready. That means 5 years of construction for students at Abbott Downing and Runlet. And I'm not just talking about disruptions in construction noise. I'm talking about disruptions and opportunities. Abbott Downing will lose significant outdoor space. Runlet will lose significant outdoor space. Students will be confined to pavement and indoors for that period. And that assumes we get lucky and we don't have to take down the gym or another wing of the building, which has happened at other projects when you're talking about, is it 75 yards or 75 feet? It's 75 feet. That's how close the old building would be to the new building. And 5 years is not a long time in the life of a building. People have said that, and I agree with that, but it is the long time in the life of a child. It will be the whole middle school education for a significant portion of children who have already lost a significant portion of their elementary school education. And that's why I ran for the school board in the first place. I ran during COVID because I was concerned about what was happening to kids who were home and hybrid and not getting the opportunities they should be getting. And I can't in good conscience do that to them again. And that's why I will be voting for the Broken Ground site. To address some of the other issues, the cost is outrageous. The latest estimate was done during the highest spike of inflation costs. It's based on a square footage model. We are going to dig into it. I'm hopeful we can drive this down significantly, and that will mean making hard choices too about what we want and what we can afford as a community. And thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cotton.
I really appreciate everybody coming out, and I appreciate all the emails and phone calls that we've gotten over the past several weeks, months. And you know, this project is not new. As you all know, it's been going on since 2017. I've got to tell you, I've been unable to sleep a couple nights about this. It's very difficult to weigh all the various factors. I think most of what I would say has already been said tonight by others on the board. I look at this and I say, the main thing is we just need to build a new school. There is value to each of the locations. What I've tried to do in weighing this is to look at long-term. Having said that, I agree with Pam on the concern about disruption, the concern that it's going to take a year and a half longer to build at the Runlet site than it is at Broken Ground. When we talk about long-term, however, I look at it and I think, you know, there aren't going to be not too many more houses built in the south end. There are going to be new houses built on the east side. There are going to be new people coming to live across the river. And I'm worried about the kids, not even 5 years from now. I'm worried about the kids 30 years from now to a certain extent, and what is best for them. And based on that, I think that the likelihood is that there's going to be more development on the east side, and that there's going to be need for a school on the east side and room to expand on the east side. Having said that, those of you who know me at all know that I'm a big hiker and I love to walk in the woods. I'm a trail steward for the city of Concord. So that's all important to me. But I will also say that there's an awful lot of value to having kids be able to go out and walk those trails. It's not an easy decision. I'm not sure that there is a right answer, but on balance, I'm going to vote for the broken ground site.
Thank you, Mr. Cotton. Ms. Hastings?
Thank you all for coming, and I share many of the sentiments that fellow board members have made this evening and over the last several weeks. I understand the desire to rebuild at Runlet, and I understand the desire for something new at Broken Ground. I am a Ward 10 resident. I am a Zone C elected official for the school board, which is Wards 8, 9, and 10. And those wards will be directly affected by this vote tonight. I also taught at Broken Ground School for 25 years, 25 years. And I have great love for that school and that area. So this has been particularly difficult for me to decide what to do with this decision. I have decided that I can't support building at Broken Ground, even though I love that area greatly, for a couple of different reasons. One, I am concerned about safety. It came up a couple of times, and I am concerned that we have 0 police departments on that side of the river. We have 1 fire department, and we're going to have approximately 1,500 students in a very small area, and that is a concern to me. I'm not saying that we can't work with the city to perhaps make some changes, but I don't believe those conversations have started yet, and I don't think it's smart for us to start building a school without having had those conversations. I also agree with Mr. Cotton, who said that there is probably going to be development on the east side. I agree. That's one of the only areas we really have left, and I think that it won't be that long before we do need to look at building another middle school or another high school, and having that land available at that time might be smart, but right now it doesn't seem like the wisest decision for us. So for that reason, I'll be voting no on this motion.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. Being the president of the board, I guess I get to go last, which is both, I suppose, a benefit or a curse. But I had an email, I think we made it from someone who said, "How are you going to make your decision?" And thinking on that, I will tell you, I'm going to make my decision based on the facts. I'm going to make my decision on what's best for the students, all of the students of the Concord School District. I'm a Zone A person, but I represent all of the students. And I'm going to make my decision on what I think is best for the taxpayers. Well, I've heard, and to Ms. Higgins' point, I've heard also, I've had people say, yeah, slap a roof on the old one, and so it doesn't leak. We don't need anything. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I want to thank Ms. Hoadley and Ms. Ardinger for bringing up the fact that, you know, I am a Zone A person, which means wards 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's not always how I look at things. I look at things as someone who represents the students and the taxpayers of all the city. But a few charters ago, there was a real big push so that we didn't used to have Zone A, B, and C. But the city citizens felt that they were members of the community that were outside of wards 4 or for outside of wards 5, 6, and 7 didn't have a voice. That overwhelmingly it was the downtown, the southern end that had a chance to make the policy, who had a chance to get in here. So I take that very seriously. I want to thank all of you. I know exactly how Ward 7 feels, right? I mean, when I go down here, you know, Kara's right. Ward 7 turned out, and congratulations to Ms. Cooley for being such a great organizer of Ward 7. They did a good job. But I've knocked on the doors because we've had meetings, and we didn't have meetings. We've had meetings here, downtown, in this part of the city. And just to be clear, this is not the center of Concord. You know, Runlet is in the very southern part of Concord. And I had an email today from someone who says it is an absolute nightmare for anyone who lives on the northern end of this district, which would be wards 1, 2, and 3, and on the east side. So I take those things very seriously, and so I did my best to listen to everyone. Let me tell you what I think. When I said the best thing of taxpayers, there's a $5 million cost. And cost is important, and we all know that, because if you took a look at the rebuild at Runlet signs that were put out to not have us build at the center point site, cost is right there at the beginning. Cost is $5 million more for South Street, and I can't ignore that for the same reasons that Ms. Robinson said. That's a big chunk of money. Utilities and infrastructure. Listening to everybody, it's about a toss-up on that. You know, we have aging and falling apart infrastructure that comes up to the South Street site. You know, we have infrastructure at the Curtisville site. We heard on Monday night that it would be $26 million. I called the city to find out. It's my job. I've been working on this since well before 2000, or before 17. It's 2016 I probably started. So I called them and I found out that that's the whole replacement of all the pipes and then for water and sewer in the Heights, which they are planning on because that's where the growth has been, and we're going to have to replace that. That $1.9 million that's in our budget, I spoke to the city manager, pretty good estimate. Pretty good estimate. So on that one, I trust that estimate. The tearing down of and demolition, some people think that should be included. Well, absolutely, if we're going to build on the exact same site. We know that from Christa McAuliffe. We know that from Abbott Downing. I'm sure most people are familiar with what was the Walker School and is the Binney Center. We didn't pay to demolish that. You know, we sold it. And I've asked real estate agents, and you know what? Runlet is a prime real estate place, and there is a demand for housing in our city. And the folks who talk about, you know, smart development, that, keeping it down there, that's where we need housing that builds, you know, a lot of additional units. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know, because I also heard a lot of people who have very good reasoning as to expand our CRTC there, which brings in a lot of money to our district. But I know that's worth it. Best thing for students. The overwhelming thing I've heard, and I've heard this from a lot, is build it the quickest way possible and what's best for students. They don't, you know, 18 months less is important to them. Disruptions. We heard how people think it's really cool to look outside, and I've heard people who say, we don't mind slogging through the mud, but I've had a parent who said, accessibility is important. During the construction, accessibility is shot, right? I also heard my child has anxiety and some attention issues. We have more people with anxiety in our students these days, and part of it's COVID and part of it's other things. But they will never be able to have a normal school learning experience with a major construction going on 75 feet away. Yes, there'll be construction at broken ground, but the difference would be someone pounding a hammer halfway up this set of seats here and someone pounding a hammer over at the Warren parking slot, if some of you happen to park where the seniors park. That's a big difference. With the wooded area and outdoor classrooms were one of the most prevalent things during the 2017 feedback from our community. They wanted those. Yes, we'll have to tear down some of the trees, but the students will be right there on trails and right there in wooded areas. And what better place to get out and look at things? But I don't like to tear down trees either. So, Ms. Kinney, make sure that they don't tear down an extra 8 acres at the hundreds of acres they're going to tear down to build along the river up in where the monitor happens to be now, and where they're talking about putting in, tearing down 90 acres of trees for that 110-acre site. Get your extra 8 acres there, because I think it'd be great for our students to have the opportunity to do that. Best for the future. Room for expansion. And I've mentioned this before. This is not 50 years in the future. This is pre-K coming, and we're going to have to think about it. And there is no room at Christa McAuliffe, and I hear from the students that they don't have enough play areas. Maybe they can go to some of the ones, Ms. Green, if you can help them out, that would be awesome. We don't have room at Abbott Downing. When we were talking early on, people said, well, we can make Runlet have as much fields as any of the options, but the way they do it is taking away the play areas of the Abbott Downing School. Elementary kids need play areas too. It just doesn't fit at the Runlet School. That's just a fact, whether you think it's important or not. And people say this is the same design. Well, we ask our architects to do the same design and make the one that would fit at Runlet. Runlet's the one that's the location where things don't fit. It's too tight a site, right? We have the same design. But when we get in there, I think if we build at broken ground, we'll have the opportunity to save money, because we won't be so constrained, and we can change that design a little bit, right? That's a chance, because I do really want to change that design, and I want to save some money. And with regards to the future, growth is in the wards 1 and 2, and it's on the east side. Mr. Cotton, I think, is exactly right. We're not going to see much growth. And for those of you who think that we're hard putting, it's not good to have 2 extra buses having to run over there, that'll be for about 5 years. And then growth will change to where the fact is, it'll be, if we built at the South Street site, we'd be busing more people in here and spending more time on buses, because proportionally, people are moving to the east side and to the north side. Safety, we check, that's a very important piece, and it's one that this board takes very seriously, and we reached out. And the fire department and the police department have assured us that both sites are equal. Now, maybe that wasn't true before they had the Sioux Falls Bridge, but that fire department can come flying down there as fast as the fire departments can get down to the very southern end of this city, so I'm not concerned about that. So for those reasons, and I hope I've been, clear. Oh, and the one thing I didn't mention, equity. Equity is more than just saying, oh, these kids can walk or don't have to walk, and so they don't, the fact that they have to be bused from the other side of the 393. Equity is so much more than that, right? And so for those folks who say that, well, since we can't bus them, there's no equity issues, I disagree. So based on that, I'm going to be voting for the broken ground site. And I appreciate everyone's participation. I hear you. I know that there's safety issues with regards to traffic. Well, to be quite frank, in most of our schools, and I think that's something that this board needs to address, or the next board should address, because, I've driven by where Mr. Croto said on Beaver Meadow, and that's not a very safe situation right there. So thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the board? Go ahead, Ms. Meeker.
Question for the chair. Will you have the secretary read the names of the 5 people who voted for broken ground? As a matter of record.
Ms. Hoadley, I personally, when it comes time for a a vote, I will personally call for a roll call vote.
You will know it before we leave.
Yes.
Oh, we will do it as soon as we're finished with discussion. Unless unless Ms. Higgins makes a motion to table this whole thing and we
Actually,
pass
I
it.
move to amend them.
You or the secretary,
Mhm.
read the names of the people whose 5 votes prevailed.
Yes, we will read the names of all of the votes, certainly. But first, Ms. Meeker, and then Ms. Higgins, you can go.
I mean, I feel like this is just the beginning of our discussion rather than the end, because I really just think that for the public to hear for the first time how people are feeling so overwhelmingly for broken ground is probably a shock. That, you know, we've had a lot of opportunities to voice how we're feeling, which way we're leaning, our response to the public. So I just really want to make sure before we jump to this vote that, you know, we're not just taking in weeks and weeks and months of pro-Runlet compelling arguments for keeping it at Runlet and then just being like, all right, broken ground sounds good. So I just want to say, Ward 7 isn't the only ward that showed up. Ward 5 showed up, Ward 10 showed up, we've got Ward 1 folks, Ward 4 folks, granted in a smaller degree, but I just think it's disingenuous to suggest that there's only one ward or one organization or one advocacy group that has a vested interest in this outcome. I think that there are a lot of people in this community that I'm meeting for the first time, and they care about keeping the school at Runlet. I mean, all but one tonight, Runlet, Runlet, Runlet. Monday, every single person that testified, Runlet. Listening sessions. We have not only pro-Runlet, but just leave broken ground alone. How can this not be compelling? And the arguments that are being made are not being made by people who have no knowledge or understanding of construction or disruption. We have lived experiences from people who are professionals that are giving you counter arguments to the arguments you just made. Additionally, I want to make a point about equity. I think it is inappropriate for us to throw around the word equity when we don't really understand what it means. I can tell you that I have a 5th grader that is scared to death to go to Runlet next year because of cultural issues at the school, about kids throwing around racial slang words, about distrust among the cliques in the school. That's an equity issue. That's a culture issue. That's how do we heal our communities of various backgrounds and build trust within the school. So it doesn't matter if it's on the east side or west side if the kids aren't feeling safe at school, whatever their background is. So just saying the word equity, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't count. It's not the real work, just saying it out loud. So I'm just asking for anyone that maybe came tonight on the fence about this to be open to changing your mind tonight, to saying like, yeah, we actually can get this done at Runlet, and that compelling arguments have been made that have convinced me that broken ground isn't the end-all, be-all site tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Meeker. And just since you called it out, the only reason I mention equity is because it was mentioned by some of the folks who have written us, testified, and said that. But I agree wholeheartedly with you that we have a lot more equity work to do in all of our schools. And you know, it's a compelling and an extremely important task of this board. So I agree 100%. Ms. Higgins.
I also feel very strongly, I echo what Kara said about the fact that we constantly ask the public for input and come out, and we move our meeting to accommodate people, and it feels like 5 of the 9 people at this table already knew what they thought. Why did we waste all your time? I feel that we're not going to lose building aid. We're not going to lose anything by not making this decision tonight, and I just feel crappy about it. I don't feel comfortable, and you know, and In terms of my own personal opinion on the two sites, it's not as strong right now as how disappointed I am in the fact that certain board members are just completely ignoring the people that they claim to represent. So I would move that we don't vote on the location tonight. I would get rid of the other motion and move that we table this decision until, that's just what I think.
A motion to table does take precedence over the motion that's on the floor. Is there a second on the motion to table this?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Meeker. Is there discussion on the motion to table the decision? Go ahead.
I guess I would ask Ms. Meeker and Ms. Higgins what would change. I feel like I've been in the other position because I know that I'm going to go to school drop-off tomorrow and pick up, and there are going to be neighbors who are not going to be super happy with me. I have been looking for reasons to support the Runlet site, and to see if I could get myself there. I think there's been a reason that it's been the school boards for many, many years have been looking for a site other than the existing site to build a new middle school because of the challenges of building there. And if we have to overcome the challenges, we will overcome the challenges, but I don't think that makes it the best option. And so I don't know what will, if there's something that we think will change, I feel like we have been, as a board, talking about this, holding hearings on this for a number of months. We had extensive discussions a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I've lost track of time, where I think people did raise the issues that were most compelling to them. And the public was there, a number of members of the public was there for that. I also know that I'm hearing from other people. I feel like in the past 2 days, there has been a strong uptick in the number of people who've been saying, wait, no, broken ground makes a lot more sense. We talked about the parent who says, we have to drive already to the high school, now we have to drive to, driving to Runlet is a real challenge for us. Or the parent of children with attention deficit disorder who really fear how their children's education will be disrupted. So if you think there's another piece of information,
my biggest issue
then
is,
I'm willing to wait for that, but I need to know what we're waiting for.
I'm personally waiting for a room with this many people in it that stand at microphones and tell me why they want it at Broken Ground School. I'm a citywide rep. When I see an auditorium, we can do it at Millbrook, we can do it at Hatbox Theater at the mall, we can do it in the empty Sears building, wherever it takes to get people that can't get here to get there and share. I've asked this before, but you're right, we've had several meetings, we've invited the public, and time again, we hear rebuild at Runlet. So if I were sitting at this table and every one of these speakers talked about broken ground, I'd have a very different thought process in my head right now, because I would have heard from just as many passionate people about why that's the better choice for them, where they live, for their kids, and what they think in their wallets. Tabling the motion also gives us time to look at the price, to rethink what we're asking taxpayers to fund. It lets us look at different ways to think of educating our kids. We have another high school, another middle school in this town. It's not unreasonable to look at all of those things as well. $175 million is a lot of money. We don't have to decide tonight where we spend that money. That's what I think is different.
If we don't decide soon where we're going to build this school, we will not be eligible for building aid.
We have several months for that.
We've pushed this off several months already.
And we're not going to be able to address the cost until we can start to design. So I'm surprised that in the months we've been talking about this is the first time I've heard the suggestion that we should stop the whole process and talk to Merrimack Valley about merging. This has not come up in capital facilities or in the board as a whole in the 3 years that I've been involved in these discussions.
And I think if we had better community support for the other building, the other site, that maybe it would need to be a topic. But I'm just looking at a community that's being ignored. That's how it feels to me.
Go ahead and clap. I'm looking at the community being ignored too, but it's not this community, because this community, I see some parents, I see loads of parents out here who can afford to have a sitter or have someone who can take care of their kids. And I've heard from many single parents who said, I'm a hairdresser, I'm a bank teller, I'm, a plumber. I can't come down and testify here because... No, I'm not shaming you. I don't want to shame. I'm not shaming you for where you live. What I'm saying is there is a huge part of this community who doesn't have an opportunity to be able to be at this meeting for a variety of reasons.
If you're such a good community organizer, maybe you should have organized your community to come out.
Okay, hold on. This is not a thing. We take public input at a meeting, and as we have said on so many other occasions, we take public input by phone, we take public input by email, we take public input, and we... No, this isn't. We've gotten a tremendous amount. I can say for me, I've had a tremendous amount supporting Broken Ground.
Jim, I want to move the question.
Can we please speak
Yes.
to the motion?
All right, the motion was...
Point of order.
Agreed. Move the question. So, all those in favor of tabling the decision and per the motion, please signify by saying aye.
I request a roll call.
Okay, there's been a call for a roll call. All those in favor of tabling the motion, we will have a roll call. Ms. Ms. Hastings, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mr. Richards?
Nay.
Ms. Walsh? Nay. Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Mr. Weinberg?
Nay.
Mr. Cotton?
No.
Ms. Robinson?
No.
Ms. Meeker?
Aye.
Mr. Croto?
No.
And I will vote no.
Okay, the motion fails. Now, going back to the original motion, which is which Ms. Robinson's, to build at Broken Ground.
Yes.
That has been moved and seconded. I will call for a roll call vote, and Ms. Hoadley, at the end, we will call out the names of the people who voted yea and nay.
We have to find out how many targets to
That is not funny in this
Um,
environment, Ms. Hoadley.
Yeah,
That's really not, that's not appropriate at all.
Discussion is,
It's not a funny joke.
with discussion
Okay,
still
enough.
open.
I'm calling order.
Is discussion still open?
Yes, we haven't started the vote yet.
Okay, wonderful. Things are going to get tense, so I just want to remind everyone where our humanity lies, where our frustrations should be focused. All that to say, I don't want to rumble in the parking lot. We can have these discourses, these conversations will continue. I commend everyone for their passion. I am passionate with you. I will share in what seems to be a common disappointment tonight in this group. But I care about every single person on this stage. They all work very hard. They work in what they believe is in the best interests of the district and our children. So I just want to keep that in mind for when this discussion closes and the vote gets taken.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meeker. Go ahead, Mr. Croto.
So it was mentioned that I came with prepared notes, and as your representative, you would expect me to have thoughts about this, and I have. Probably for 3 months at night and every early morning. And I came here with prepared notes tonight because of those thoughts. But any one of you, having said a certain thing, could have changed my mind. And it didn't, but I just wanted you to know that these prepared notes came as a result of months and months and months of listening, thinking, and research. And that's just my little spiel. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say, since it was implied that I've come in and just made, prepared notes and just did not listen, I've listened for the last 6 years. I've listened for the last 3 months. When someone made a point, and I've listened to all of you, when someone makes a point and says, the kids can walk to White Farm, I take this very seriously. So I called. The kids don't walk to White Farm. They're bused. When I said, could we walk to the State House? And no. That was far enough that it has to be bused. So I don't dismiss these things personally. I do my best to research it. I am not shaming anyone. I respect your opinion, and I know that it will be, if it was me giving up a school in my, neighborhood, I would fight for that too. But someone told me that this isn't a neighborhood school, it's a school for the city, for all of the city. And I take my position very seriously, and I try to vote what I think is the right thing, which is what I have done. You may disagree with me. That is your right. You may get a bunch of folks to say, I'm not going to vote for you next time. That is your right as well. That is the great thing about representative democracy. Anyone else have any more comments or discussion?
No, please.
Ms. Hastings, at this point, will you call a roll vote?
Yes, and the motion is to build at the Broken Ground site.
Correct. And it's been seconded.
Yes. Mr. Richards?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh? Aye. Ms. Higgins?
No.
Mr. Weinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Cotton?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Meeker?
No.
Mr. Croto?
Aye.
And I will vote no.
Can you repeat the names?
Yes, voting yes are Mr. Richards, Ms. Walsh, Mr. Weinberg, Mr. Cotton, Ms. Robinson, and Mr. Croto. Voting no, Ms. Hastings, Ms. Higgins, Ms. Meeker.
So the vote is 6-3. The motion passes.
That's all right.
Is there any more business before the board this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made to adjourn by Mr. Weinberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Meeker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you.